Well, good morning everybody once again. I hope that you've had a wonderful weekend and that everybody is feeling okay as we begin this next full week of being back at school again. And of course our zebras and our giraffes children, they are now all together, and this is going to be their very first full time where everybody's been together for the very first moment. So I hope everyone's got off to a good start. I hope you've had a good morning so far, and I hope that the rest of the week goes really well for you. So I'm going to start off again with some well dones. Well done on coping so well with the zones and the playgrounds at lunchtime and playtime, and using the space really well and looking after the things. I do need to do just a little reminder that says, remember, you only have to go and get your class's tub. You cannot take any equipment out of the other tubs. It must just be the game stuff that is in your tub and your tub only. And only 2 children need to go, so it might be a good idea if the teachers could decide on which 2 children either are going to do it all the time, or they could decide each day which 2 children are going to go and get the tub and put it into your zone. But let's hope the weather stays good and we carry on having as much fun as you have been. Now, there's also been some great stuff with Year 5 and 6 having a visit, all about owls and reptiles and things from Dave. I think it's been just absolutely brilliant again to see how much enthusiasm goes into this and how hard you work when these things are happening in the school. And I think it's a great way to get our topics and our curriculums off the ground, and to see you all back and enjoying this kind of thing. That is just wonderful to see. So well done for all of you getting involved in that. And it's also great to see sport and PE back on the agenda again. I know you're all having to come in your PE equipment on the day that it's your PE day and then stay in it, but actually you've all coped with that really, really well, and it's been wonderful and lovely to see you all back in enjoying games and PE lessons again. So again, keep up the good work. Some really good things going on across the school. And finally, a well done. It's nice to see Art back in there again now after all this time, and to see the wonderful artistry of you, the children, and the talents that you have and the skill that you can show in terms of putting all that work together. So again, these are all things that we're having to give it a go at. They're things that maybe are new to you, they're things that maybe you've never done before, and it's about giving it a go and rising to the challenge and saying, I can do this, I can do this. Now it's that theme that I want to talk about this week, this idea of rising to a challenge. Behind here I have an image, and once I reveal it, I wonder if you can work out exactly what it is a picture of. That's right, if you guessed it, it's a light bulb. Something actually now that we take for granted. We walk up to a switch, we flick it, and out comes light, just like that. Well, it wasn't always like that. For years and years and years, people lived in darkness. Then they invented fire and they used that. Then we had candles that came along. And it wasn't until the invention of, or the creation of electricity, that we suddenly had the light bulb. But actually, when electricity came along, there wasn't anything such as a light bulb. It just didn't exist. It hadn't been invented yet. No one had actually thought of how to do it. And it took the great talents and the tenacity of one man. And that man was Thomas Edison. He was an American inventor. He was born in 1847, which was just under 200 years ago. And it was his brainwave, it was his idea to think, how can I control this electricity and then make it turn into a light? And then when that happens, how do you control it? How do you contain it? And when he came up with the idea, eventually he came up with something called the light bulb. And it's something now that we take for granted. It's with us wherever we go. But it needed someone to come up with the idea. It didn't exist until Thomas Edison came up with it. Now what's interesting about Thomas Edison is that when he was at school, he used to get called addled by his teacher, which means slow or dim. And actually, what he was really good at was finding out things. And what he loved to do was go to the library and teach himself things, and he loved conducting experiments, especially ones that he'd learned from his mum. And he used to spend hours and hours taking things apart, testing things out, and then trying again, and then testing it out, and trying it again, and testing it out, and trying it again. And he just seemed to have that ability to just keep going and keep going and keep going, no matter what, until he could understand the very science behind the idea. And it was that led him, with those abilities and those characteristics, to go on to invent the light bulb. Now, Thomas Edison is also very famous for having said some very famous things, and we call these quotes. And one of them is, "I have not failed, I have just found 10,000 ways that won't work." And that was how he described his work on inventing the electric light bulb, because that means that for 10,000 times it didn't work. There were 10,000 goes where he failed. And actually every time he did that, he learned from that mistake. He thought, what can I do different next time? And failed again. And then said, what can I do different next time? And then failed again. And he kept doing that for over 10,000 times before he finally found the thing that worked, the way to invent the electric light bulb. And what he also said was this. He said, our greatest weakness lies in giving up. The most certain way to succeed is always to try just one more time. In other words, just give something a go, just one more time. When you think it's time to give up, don't give up. Just keep going. And of course that fits in with what we've often said, isn't it? We talk about the try again, try and try again, and why that behaviour is so important, that we don't just give up the first time we get something wrong. And also when we get something wrong, we call it our best mistake. And the reason it's our best mistake is that by getting something wrong and then we work out the right way to do it, it often helps us remember it. It helps our brain to understand what was going wrong, and then we somehow find a way to remember it when we do get it right. In your lessons, you must never think that getting something wrong means that somehow you're not very clever. In fact, very, very, very clever people get things wrong, but they learn from it, and then they change what they're doing, and then they find a different way, and then they work towards getting the right thing done. So in your lessons, if you're thinking, wow, this is hard, or I'm struggling with this, I'm not getting it right first time, that is absolutely okay. And it means that you're working really hard, because it means you're not giving up. It shows us that you are doing the very thing that Thomas Edison talked about. You're going to give it a go just one more time. It's a very important thing to have when we're learning, and I hope that you're all showing that and able to demonstrate that in your lessons each day. Now that brings me on to something else, because it was this that started getting me thinking about Thomas Edison and the idea of not giving up. So I'm going to show you an image, see if you can work out what this is. That's right, if you guessed it, it's crisps. Nothing more complicated than that, just a whole group of crisps together. But I wonder whether you've ever stopped to think, where does a crisp come from? What's it made of? How do you make a crisp? Well, if you didn't know, it comes from this. It comes simply from the potato. And again, it got me thinking about the idea that someone sat down and said, if I take this potato and slice it very, very thinly, and then I fry it a lot, will it turn into something different? Will it turn into something else that can be eaten rather than just as a potato? And again, just like Thomas Edison, this is about somebody trying something out and not giving up and seeing what can be invented from a new idea, a simple thing of trying to do something in a different way. Now what that links into is that not only once they'd worked out that they could use potatoes to make crisps, they then tried with other things. And they moved on to this. Now, a lot of people across the world call this maize. You might call it corn on the cob or sweet corn. which is another name for it. They mean exactly the same thing. And I'm guessing that many of you have eaten this other thing that this is made from. And whether you even realise that it was or not, I don't know. If you've ever eaten those, then you need to know that the corn on the cob of the maize is what goes into that bag of crisps. And that's what they use to make it in. And there's lots of things in life like that where what you see isn't actually where it started. And there's lots of things you could find out about this, different foods especially, when you think, well, what's in them? Someone once said, I know they're called Rice Krispies, but are they actually made from rice? But the actual answer is, yes they are. Exactly why they're called Rice Krispies. And there's lots of things in life like that. But here's the curious thing. It isn't just about eating crisps and inventing them. This was a challenge that happened recently. This factory in Leicester, where they make the Watsons, actually set themselves a different challenge. And that challenge was to try and invent or make the longest crisp ever. And you can see them there with what happens to be the longest Wotsit that has ever been made. Now this Wotsit ended up measuring 10.66 metres. You can see them there measuring this whole thing out. It has broken the world record for the longest puffed corn snap. And it took the team of 8 people 2 hours and 29 minutes to create at the Walker's factory in Leicester. And again, this is another idea about someone thinks of a challenge and then thinks, I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to try that. And I might fail and I might get it wrong, but you know what? I'm going to have a go. I'm going to see if I can do it. So this week, that's what I want you to think about. Just like Thomas Edison, are you able to give things one more go? Are you able to say, I got that wrong and that's okay? Making a best mistake is really important because then I can learn from it. And then are you ready to take on a challenge? Maybe you will go on to be someone who invents something new. Maybe you'll have an idea in the same way that someone thought about the potato to turn it into a crisp, or to take sweet corn and turn that into a crisp, and then how to make the world's longest crisp from that sweet corn. And that could be you. One day, you never know what you might invent. You might come up with something that sets the world alight with a whole new idea. And I want you to really think about that this week. So this week, I want you to really focus on being brave, give things a go, face your challenges, work hard, don't give up. And I want you to face and challenge yourself to be enthusiastic as well, so that when things are going wrong, or the work is hard, and you're making mistakes, that you stay enthusiastic and you keep thinking, I'll do what Thomas Edison said, I'll give it just one more go. So this week we'll drop safe and we'll drop thoughtful. What I want you to do is really show your brave side and your enthusiastic side. And then this Friday we'll celebrate those children that really show those two things. Brave attitude to their work or enthusiastic attitude to their work. And we'll celebrate all the great things that you've been done. So, have a great week everybody. I hope it goes well. Enjoy the learning. Don't give up. Keep being brave and keep being enthusiastic. Okay, bye for now.